Well, hello, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're watching this from in the world. A very warm welcome to our April live demo here at procurementsoftware.site. And as you can see, I'm back in my regular studio after my travels through the European winter, escaping cold and snow. I've got my procurement software tea mug just to be on brand. And I've also got the best mustache in the procurement tech space, Mr. Sam Jenks, who's going to be our co-host this afternoon to demo Kodiak Hub and to show us under the hood of what Kodiak Hub can do as an SRM platform. Hi, Sam. Very warm welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, James. I'm happy to be here and happy to be able to give the folks out there sitting into this live session an understanding of how Kodiak is reimagining supplier relationships. Best mustache in the game till maybe, I don't know, Burt Reynolds or somebody alike tries to jump into the space. With the way that the market's going, you never know who's going to pop up soon.
Indeed. And it's always nice doing these with someone that knows what they're doing as a fellow podcast host. So just while we're waiting for people to join, if anyone has joined actually and is watching on LinkedIn, just pop in the comments where you're watching this from. It's always interesting to see what regions and what countries we've got represented. Yeah, tell us a bit about Kodiak's podcast, The Way We Source.
Yeah, we started it about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Our focus is really just to be able to highlight stories of practitioners, other procure tech vendors, consultants, and just people that we find interesting, really diving into the way that sourcing and procurement impacts the way that we live, whatever that might be, whether it be from the aspects related back to ESG or emerging technology. We try and share, both, very operational tactics with our listeners, but also high flying strategy, so that we can be able to have that fine balance between, educating other practitioners that are listening it in, but also making sure that we stay ahead of the trends and keep people up to date. But it's been a hell of a lot of fun, and it's just me that sits in front of the mic. It's really the marketing team here that does the hard and the heavy lifting.
And I love the format, actually, I have to say, because there are a lot of procurement podcasts out there now, and it is one of the ones that I do genuinely regularly listen to. Yeah, it's a great show.
You're making me blush now, James.
So we've got representation from the Netherlands, from Canada, and from Denmark. Hi, Larry. Hi, Manuel. Hi, Dickem. Hi, Bjarne. I hope I've pronounced that right. And yeah, so just a little bit of housekeeping before I hand the ropes over to you, Sam, to share a few slides and to do the demo. So for anyone watching, if you have a question, then just pop it into the comments. And depending on how Sam is with the flow of the demo, we'll either tackle that there and then if it's something relevant to the screen that Sam's presenting, or we'll wrap them up and tackle them at the end. So how these usually work is that the software company, in this case, Kodiak Hub, will give a quick 5-minute overview of who they are, what they do, with a few slides, and then we'll dive into what will be around about a 25-minute demo of the product, which will leave us then with about 10 minutes at the end to do Q&A. We can then, if anyone has a comment or a question, we can flash that up on the screen like so, so as everyone can see it. And then when that's been answered, we'll take it back like that. So Sam, I'm going to hand over to you then now. The floor is yours, my friend. So just tell me when you want me to flash up your slides and we can get stuck in.
Yeah, let's do so now. And please let me know then once you can be able to see my slides. We good to go?
Yeah, we should be good to go. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks everybody for your attendance. Thanks, James, for hosting us. Kodiak Hub is chuffed at the opportunity to be able to give everyone here an understanding as how we're helping organizations globally to reimagine their supplier relationship management. Our company, for those that are not familiar with us, is headquartered in Stockholm, Sweden, with members of our team spread out between the UK, the DACH region in Germany, as well as then our innovation hub, which sits in Poland. We also have our eyes on expansion in the United States, with the hopes to have boots on the ground in late 2024, as well as the next part of our journey. For a little bit of history, founded back in 2015 by our CEO and founder, Malin Schmidt. She founded this company like most tech entrepreneurs do because, well, she needed it. She was fed up with the legacy solutions that were out there and recognized that working together with companies that have global and or complex supply chains where quality and sustainability matters is an awesome way to be able to make impact within global value chains. And that starts with a very important relationship, which is between buyer and supplier, understanding that SRM has the capacity as well to be able to take the same journey that CRM took just 20 years ago. If we look at the tools that sales and marketing have, people like myself, Marlon was always understanding, well, why do they have those glossy CRM solutions when on the buy side, there's a need for the same thing, to get rid of the homegrown solutions, the Excel spreadsheets, the SharePoint, a lot of the tooling that I'm sure many of our listeners here today are utilizing to be able to fill the gaps in the SRM space. We're trying to really help our clients to take that next leg of the journey into modern solutions. We believe that SRM as a space is a critical space that has a lot of potential, which is rarely and today not always fully reaching its potential. We believe that it's an operational, tactical, and strategic focus within a business. And while it is one of those areas that I think is less addressed within a procure tech stack, we believe that it has the opportunity to make massive impact and headwinds within a business to be able to drive collaboration and innovation with the right suppliers and ultimately drive impact within broader value chains. Our solution is a best of breed within the space. It's not just us that says so. Procure Tech 100 and Kearney do a mapping every single year. We were listed as one of 6 within the supplier management space. Very humbled to receive this accolade for the second year in a row. You can go and check us out on Procure Tech 100, as well as, of course, utilize the great resources that James Meads has on procurementsoftware.site. If you're looking at finding new solutions, either in the supplier management space or others, there's a great resource there on procurementsoftware.site to be able to do so. I think the reason why we received this particular accolade is while we are a best of breed within the supplier management space, we're also covering a lot of the areas in the adjacent risk management and sustainable procurement capabilities, giving our clients a more holistic 360-degree view of their supplier base than some of our other competitors, and also the same capabilities that you maybe would see within broader source to contract or source to pay suites. Our solution ultimately is helping our clients on a journey, helping them to make risk as automated as possible, ultimately, so they can focus on those more strategic relationships. Our focus ultimately is to turn supplier relationships into a competitive advantage, but we also recognize that that requires good process and great technology to be able to get there. And that's where our solution comes in. The other focus of our business is to be able to make an impact. And I know that this sounds grandiose as a tech vendor to say, we're going to go out and change the world. But when it's all said and done, at the core of our offering, with every supplier our customers are managing in a more sustainable manner, we're able to create safe and sound workspaces in those supply chains, ultimately rippling the potential impact that we have in global value chains. And isn't that pretty special? The opportunity to be able to really, with the starting of managing one supplier, make a greater impact. And that's why we do what we do. It's at the core of our vision. And while it does sound grandiose, it's at the core of our ethos. And it's something that we like to align with all of our potential clients on and our existing clients on very early, because this is a joint venture that we're taking together. So how is it that we're getting there? Well, it's not just going to happen on its own. There's good technology at the core, which we're going to get introduced to in just a moment. Just to give an overview, the solution is a modular, scalable platform. What that means is that it's a box of chocolates. There's various functionality and modules allowing our customers to be able to manage the life cycle of their supplier base in a 360-degree manner, ultimately turning supplier insights into real supply chain impact. The baseline functionality in the hub is where you have your classic information, data, document management. You have your supplier scorecards, notification and segmentation capabilities to push users and suppliers towards activities. There's an action and collaboration space, as well as then the capability to be able to drive more intelligence with our analytics functionality. The rest of the modular offering is really broken down into 2 main pillars, as you see on the left and the right-hand side of the screen. The left-hand side of the screen is where we've partnered up with third-party preferred vendors of third-party risk solutions, helping our clients to be able to get a snapshot of the third-party risks that exist within their supply chains. media monitoring, financial credit rating, as well as then country risk together with sanctions and politically exposed persons monitoring. The right-hand side of the screen is all about process optimization and orchestration, helping our clients from the beginning of that relationship when they're onboarding new suppliers, in lifecycle management related back to auditing or performance evaluation, to be able to follow up with their suppliers over time. At the core of the solution also sits a rating methodology, which is something that allows our clients to be able to not just capture data, but also to turn that data into real spotting of risks and opportunities very fast. Naming some of our customers, the brag slide, right? You're not allowed to talk about what you do without talking about who you work with. The reason I'm showing this is not just to say we work with great brands, which we do. We're very proud of our customer base, but also to show the breadth of the industries we work within, as well as then the size of clients. Our typical clients is between 100 million in revenue up to about 5 billion plus in revenue. And with that being said, our client base is spread over various industries. Everything from telecommunications to consumer goods to process industries to deep manufacturing, utilities, food production, you name it, we have an industry reference. And the reason why is because the solution is so malleable from a category management or supplier data perspective, as well as from a supplier KPI perspective as well. So that was a quick overview of our slide deck and a little bit more about our business. Now I would say that it's probably fitting that we shift over to the demonstration of the platform. James, you able to see the solution now?
Yes, we can see. Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Let's get right into things then. So welcome into the Kodiak Hub platform. The solution itself is a cloud-based software as a service. Our servers are hosted in the EU, and we are an Azure-based business, just for a little bit of those technical aspects related back to the solution. The glimpse that we're seeing now is a world overview of our suppliers. Here we can be able to see our suppliers plotted around the globe, giving us an immediate snapshot based upon the country risk of those individual countries where we have suppliers located or where we would maybe like to start sourcing from. What we also see that we can expand or take away are then filters. Filters exist throughout the solution as global filters, helping us to be able to see different segmentations or taggings of suppliers, categorizations of suppliers as we see fit. The supplier data that we see plotted here is then giving us a snapshot again, as we mentioned, of the country risk. The first snapshot is then going to be based upon the color coding of the countries. We can also be able to expand upon particular clusters to see more and larger groupings of individual suppliers. Those individual suppliers we can also see plotted around the globe individually, and we can also see a color coding of those suppliers driven by their particular rating profile as well. The country risk profile, the safe source rating, is driven by multiple indices, 40 different indices, things like the ILO, World Bank, UN, to be able to give our clients a snapshot of the environmental, social, financial and geopolitical risk that exists in a country. It's a contextual risk giving us a snapshot of where a supplier is located around the world. If we want to be able to segment the supplier base, well, with a click of a button or a click of a few buttons, we can be able to quickly do so. And if we want to be able to see individual suppliers, we can also quickly jump into those individual supplier scorecards from this interface. What we also see as a last overlay is then the disaster mapping. This gives us a mapping based upon the GDACS, which is the Global Disaster and Coordination System, giving us an understanding of where there might be potential risks related back to global disasters or particular happenings in coordinates that are located in the vicinity of our supplier base. We're going to jump around to a few different interfaces now, but before we do so, I'm going to give a quick orientation with the platform. The Insights tab is where we're going to be able to get more insights about our supplier base. It's where we can be able to see supplier lists. We can be able to add new suppliers, import data, export data, and we can also be able to see previously saved supplier lists here as well. Say that I'm a category manager or somebody that wants to quickly identify a particular grouping of suppliers, well, with a click of a button, I can have those lists saved here underneath Insights. I can also toggle to another view, not just my supplier list view, but also the products and services view. We'll come back to that in just a moment. Underneath impact, this is then where we're going to be able to impact the relationship. It's where I can be able to build up onboarding or assessment templates, audit checklists, and performance evaluations. I could be able to then run campaigns, running those to either very narrow, specific categorizations of suppliers, or, for example, to broader groupings of suppliers. And all along the way, when I'm running those campaigns, I can be able to have insights, understanding who's responding, who isn't, have people gotten back to us. And when they do, the response values, data, and documentation is not just going to be reposited and be treated as dead data. It's an opportunity for us to be able to spot risks and opportunities within that particular response, helping us to very quickly be able to understand what is the overall risk profile of a supplier, whether this is being utilized in onboarding, ESG assessment, pre-qualification, or ongoing in lifecycle qualification. For audits as well as performance evaluation, the rating methodology sits at the core to be able to help our clients, again, spend their time in the right places with the right suppliers as well. We'll come back to the assessments, audits, and evaluations capability in just a bit. The other pillar of the impact section is then the action space, which we'll also come back to in a bit. This is where I'm able to get an overview, but also dive into collaboration spaces, helping me to be able to communicate back and forth with a supplier in a ongoing interface where we can be able to share documentation and alike. And we'll come back to this in just a bit. The last thing that I wanted to be able to show is the last pillar, which is the intelligence pillar. This is where plenty of our clients start their journey in our platform, especially if you are a director or a VP looking to be able to see some more breakdowns of category versus category or a broader supplier base. This is where we're going to be able to see some of those insights. So going into an edit mode, I can be able to see our dashboarding capabilities allows us to get a more robust overview of all the data that's been captured on our supplier base. I could be able to file through existing reports that I've built up. I can also, though, be able to see different reports that have been shared with me. Just as in the top left-hand corner, I can toggle on or toggle off the reporting capabilities, allowing me to be able to keep others in the team in the loop, increasing the collaboration in our team. We see that these reports also can be able to feature multiple tabs, of course, so they can be more robust than just a single page. And the same filtering capability that exists in the platform on the list formatting, in the campaigning functionality, in the global overview, so forth and so on. It also, of course, exists throughout the intelligence pillar of the platform as well, allowing us to be able to quickly utilize these different typifications or segmentations, whatever those might be, that we can quickly search for, and we can apply those either to current pages, to the general report that we're looking at, but we can also be able to utilize these, for example, to apply just to single charts. So say, for example, that I want to adjust the chart I'm looking at, well, then with the click of a button, I can be able to update that chart, see those applied filters, and see that breakdown. The reporting features allows us to be able to utilize either the out-of-the-box widgets that our BI functionality has. We can also, of course, push this data to an existing BI interface, for example, Power BI, ClickView, or alike, to be able to extract that data and utilize it in other formats. And then we also then have pivot table capabilities. Our focus as a vendor is really data in, data out, and we want to be able to utilize this information, data, and documentation that we're capturing from suppliers or from users that are managing the lifecycle of suppliers in various ways. So let's start in showing some of these dashboards and overviews. The initial view that we're seeing here gives us a high-level snapshot, in this case, of the applied filter of suppliers in a particular grouping. And I could be able to quickly spot those suppliers and then double-click, understanding who are those individual suppliers. And from this interface, of course, I can dive into those individual scorecards. I can do things like utilize the rating methodology that, again, is built up based upon our clients' own KPIs to be able to follow historical progression over time. And in this example, we're being able to track, for example, quarter by quarter, the performance of a aggregated view of a supplier base, whether that be based on the segment, in this example, of a project. It could be a particular category or business unit of suppliers. And then, for example, we could be able to do that by plotting that against another project, for example, seeing that side by side, how our suppliers are faring. We could be able to do very nice correlation charts. For example, this particular view is giving us a snapshot of how our suppliers have fared in quality management versus their quality performance. So for example, we could be able to see, well, this supplier says that they have great quality management, but their quality performance is very poor. Maybe a reason for us to be able to follow up with them, and maybe a reason to be able to start focusing on doing an audit with this particular supplier, for example. There's various charts to pull forward all of the global indices that we have. There's different types of compare and contrast capabilities, allowing us to make sure in sourcing activities or new projects that we're working with the best suppliers over time, allowing us to compare, for example, multiple suppliers side by side in the same category. We can also shift the dimension of that view, not just, for example, looking at one item like the performance, but also looking at risk or compliance profile of this suppliers mapped against each other. We can also be able to, of course, see documentation plotted. So what is the active or expired documentation, allowing our customers to get out of their spreadsheets. And when audit season rolls around, you have a quick overview of all of your suppliers that are or are not compliant. This, of course, gives us a snapshot of which suppliers we maybe need to be able to issue corrective actions to, or set up for advanced automated actions to be able to start capturing back documentation. But it also can keep us like on top of, for example, the expiries of commercial documentation and alike. There's various notification settings that we can be able to set up in the notification builder, which we'll see if we have time to get around to as well later in the demonstration. But pretty much we can trigger on expiry dates, on changes of data, so forth and so on, for audit trails on those items. The top and bottom performers is exactly as it sounds. We can be able to quickly pull forward who's best, who's worst in particular performance or compliance areas. We can also be able to pull forward data in pivot tables. The example I have here is just grouping my data of, for example, the average spend in the different groupings. I can also be able to expand upon and see who are the suppliers in that grouping. So pretty much this is rolling up and aggregating data based upon the tags we have in the platform, and allowing me then to quickly side by side see these categorizations of suppliers next to each other to be able to visualize things such as spend. And where this starts getting really fun is when we're able to start putting together some of the different dimensions of the rating profiles with commercial value. So taking that one step further, if we're able to then see, for example, plotted on one axis, the quality performance versus the other axis of the commercial performance, and then be able to look at that plotted against the average spend of that particular supplier, or we could do the total spend of this particular supplier, then we could be able to see we're spending a whole heck of a lot of money based upon the bubble size with a particular supplier that maybe has lacking quality or commercial performance based upon our acceptance criteria. Well, that might be a reason for us to be able to start identifying other suppliers that might be in the same grouping or categorization to be able to start reallocating spend. And again, this is where then the pieces of the puzzle start fitting together. And again, one of the unique aspects of our solution being able to provide this 360-degree view is that I can be able to take decisions based upon the risk, ESG, or compliance profile just as much as I can on the performance and commercial profile of a supplier, all in one interface. I'm going to continue on with the demonstration, just quickly navigating over back to the supplier list overview. The supplier list overview, again, gives us a view of our suppliers where, again, we can be able to utilize various typifications or segmentations to quickly find suppliers. We can utilize our built category trees or category subsegments, which we help our customers to be able to build out in the solution. The data tags and data filters that you see around the solution, whether those are in the headings that I'm seeing in this particular view, which of course I can be able to manage as a user, are things that are 100% configured to the user and the business's needs. We can also be able to utilize this for quick segmentation, but we can also utilize the overlay, for example, of the rating methodology to, again, continue to filter out to find the groupings of suppliers that we want to be able to identify. Again, as mentioned before, we can at any point in time clear filters just in the same way that we can be able to utilize those filters. And we can also be able to utilize, for example, pre-saved lists that are either shared with us by other users, or, for example, something that I pre-saved as a list to be able to pull forward a different view of data. Here, for example, is an overview of being able to utilize the solution from a contract management perspective. Do I want to be able to quickly see in a snapshot of the suppliers? Do we have frame agreements with them? Who's the category manager associated, so forth and so on. And then I can be able to see this particular view of those suppliers. I can at any point in time also quickly search for new suppliers directly from this interface. And then of course I can dive into those suppliers' scorecards very quickly as well. From this interface, I can also be able to add brand new suppliers, whether those suppliers are being added individually or imported, as well as then exported. I can also be able to utilize the feature with the sign up capabilities, which is a newly launched module, to be able to host online forms for unsolicited supplier onboarding. What does this mean? Well, it gives our clients the capability to be able to host this particular link on their website, and they can be able to have their suppliers input their data as they see fit. So they're not having to issue things to the supplier via our onboarding and assessment capabilities. That supplier's data then lands in the platform as a pending approval supplier. And you can be able to, of course, get snapshots of, for example, that supplier's data. So then you can be able to start qualifying them in various ways. If I want to be able to add a new supplier, I can quickly be able to do so as well. Here's the example of adding a new supplier into the platform. We'll just take this example and we'll say that this is procurement software site is the new supplier. I don't know your location, James, so I apologize. I'll just take, for example, a location here in Sweden. We're able to then update the supplier ID. And of course, we could be able to input various data points as we see fit as adding the supplier into the platform. With that being said, the adding of those 4 required data points, the supplier ID, which we can auto-generate or match, of course, the typifications of the business that we're working with, the supplier country, supplier name, and supplier contact email, then we're able to save this supplier and start pushing the work to the supplier themselves. Again, we could be able to start, for example, tagging up other data points related back to this particular supplier as well. And all of these different classifications and typifications are things that are completely configurable to the business that we're working with as well. We will save this data. And for example, now that supplier record is created, we could be able to quickly find that particular supplier scorecard by then jumping directly to that supplier scorecard. And what we see here is directly configured is a safe source rating based upon the country that the supplier is located within, giving a snapshot of that contextual risk rating that is related back to a supplier as well. What I want to have plenty of time to be able to demonstrate is, though, the supplier scorecard, which is the real control center for a supplier relationship. So I'm going to be able to spend most of the time here. I'm not sure if we're going to have time to be able to get around to the more process orchestration solutions related back to building up assessment templates with our drag and drop builder or running campaigns and the reporting functionality. But we'll try and, of course, get as far as we can during today's demonstration in the next 12 minutes before we pause for questions and answers. If you're interested in a deeper demonstration and understanding some of the orchestration behind these very nice insights that you're able to capture on the front end, then make sure to just request a demonstration, which you can do by utilizing a link that I believe my colleague Richard has dropped in the chat bubble, but you can also be able to go on our website and book a demo directly there if you would like to as well. So the supplier scorecard. First and foremost, I need to take a swig of water. I hope that that's okay before I talk about the supplier scorecard, because I'm getting out of breath.
Go for it. It's nice to know as well that I'm not showing up as a dodgy supplier after you entered me on there, Sam. So I'll sleep easy tonight.
You bet you're not. Don't worry. Your safe source rating is excellent. With that being said, if we were to issue a self-assessment to you and see your sustainable practices, I can't say the same, James. But let's see if you're able to fare after that. The data properties, of course, sit here in the scorecard, as does documentation, as does insights, as does third-party risk. The focus of this scorecard is really to build a 360-degree view of a supplier or a particular site of a supplier, and really to help you to have an overall overview that you can be able to manage the relationship moving forward. The supplier data properties we see here, this is data, of course, that might have been shared with us by the supplier as they have interfaces to be able to update their data or also to be able to provide us with new data that is not yet in the platform. But it also gives us the opportunity as the user to update data properties if we have the user rights to be able to do so. We can, of course, be able to configure things in the platform like approval chains. So, for example, we can push particular users with the notification that now it's your time to go in and review the supplier's view. So for example, I as a legal user might be going in and being able to look at the overall compliance and governance. Oh, okay, good. They have, in fact, a code of conduct. I can be able to, for example, see that code of conduct in the platform as well. I could also be able to see the signing status of that platform, of that particular document, because we can be able to issue documents via DocuSign for signing in our platform as well. And then I can be able to, for example, give my approval and save the data point. Based upon that approval, it might push forward to the next person in the signing chain, where then, of course, the approval status of the overall supplier can be able to be managed by users that have the rights to be able to do so. Any response values that are coming back from suppliers in their self-assessments or things that are being audited are landing directly in the supplier scorecard. Why is that nice? Well, it gives us a snapshot within the pillars of health. How is this supplier doing, for example, in their overall business practices? I can see that it's early warning. I can dive in. Why is it early warning? I can directly see the different areas in which they are not performing versus the areas which they are performing. The contents of the questions that I'm asking and the different types of KPIs that I'm trying to capture back from the supplier are completely up to me as a user. We, though, as a business, have an out-of-the-box attribute library, as we call it, which is really just a KPI library with sets of questions or potential KPIs that you would like to follow up with your suppliers on, related back to compliance or ESG, as well as audit checklists, as well as then performance evaluations, to be able to help guide our customers towards best practices. With that being said, we also have internationally built frameworks related back to like ISO frameworks and budding legislation, helping our clients to stay ahead of all of the different requirements that are coming up. LKSG in the DACH region, for example, we have standard templates, CSDDD, Transparency Act in Norway, and various other different types of frameworks, modern slavery, you name it. The data that we're also capturing in the platform is not just going to be the data, for example, related back to the business, but some of this data related back to the business is also going to drive third-party risk insights. So if we continue to have our view on the right-hand side of the screen here, we see that the VAT and company registration number, directly input by the supplier or by us as a user, is going to configure the supplier with a credit score and overall credit health. Other third-party insights based upon the name or the website domain name of the supplier will give us then an overview of the different types of risks in the media. And then the last pillar of that is the sanctions of politically exposed persons. So based upon the input of a name, there can be able to find the specific entity that you're working with and the overall view of the general information related back to the supplier, locations of that supplier, sources of data where this business has been listed as special interest entity or alike, linked subsidiaries, down to even then the special interest or politically exposed persons can be able to be expanded upon, so we can be able to have a snapshot of the different types of third-party risks. Again, financial risks, media risks, as well as then sanctioned politically exposed risks, together with the country risks. Those are the different third-party risk insights that we're provided with. All of these things are natively integrated into our interface and then licensed via us, via our preferred vendors. With that being said, we can also integrate with bespoke solution providers that are out there, Rapid Ratings, Dun & Bradstreet, Credit Safe, you name it, for other types of insights with contracts that you might already hold for other risk providers as well. We also, something to mention, have native integrations now as well with EcoVadis and Integrity Next. We are, though, not a reseller of those suppliers' data in any way, shape, or form. We have integration partnerships, which allows us, of course, to visualize those data points in our scorecards so that we can be able to do a quick check. Well, is a supplier EcoVadis rated? Great. Well, then maybe I don't have to dig deeper in my own qualification of a supplier within their sustainable practices, for example. The other pillar of health beyond the safe source pillar of health and the sustainable practices is the performance evaluation. Again, this is built up based upon our clients' unique criteria, and you could be able to segment that criteria based upon the type or category of supplier that you're working with. Again, you can use our best practices, or you can be able to configure based upon your unique KPIs to performance in your business. This is then built up based upon both hard data, so facts, for example, lead time, quality of parts per million, complaints, claims, so forth and so on. things that you can be able to feed directly in from an ERP or quality solution, and then soft data, which you could be able to capture from internal stakeholder evaluations. The beautiful thing is that this aggregates up to be able to give a single view of the supplier's overall performance, helping you to be able to see a snapshot of how is a supplier doing in different KPI areas, but also that aggregate view gives you a snapshot of how things are then developing over time. Is a supplier getting better or are they getting worse? Again, the rating methodology helps us to stop having to dig through spreadsheets and visualizes data for us in a way that allows us to focus more on turning those supplier relationships into a competitive advantage. This different types of overviews and trend lines, of course, are not just things that we can see for individual KPIs, but also aggregate views of this particular data. Also on the scorecard is previous assessments, audits, and performance evaluations. We can be able to dive directly in to those previous evaluations, assessments, or audits, and we can be able to start seeing here all of the ways in which the rating methodology is shining through. The way that the template builder works is that you're able to use a drag and drop builder, drag in questions. Some of those questions might require documentation and expiry dates, but all questions you can be able to also then set a weighting or a rating related back to, so that it's going to aggregate up a view, helping you to be able to spot where is a supplier doing well and where they're doing poorly very, very quickly. All of the documentation that was shared with you as well is going to be reposited directly in the same supplier scorecard as I showed before. So you're going to be able to not just see what the supplier says, but also, for example, find the actual documentation that has been shared with you, whether that be compliance related documentation, product and service related documentation, compliance documentation. The supplier is able to share that information with you in various interfaces you provide them with, whether that's unsolicited onboarding or assessment, whether that's the assessment that you're triggering from the self-assessment module in the impact section, but also within the action space. So that would be a good segue, I think, to be able to show off a little bit more of the action space. The action space is where you can be able to manage collaboration or communication with the supplier. This is where the communication is also linked back to this individual supplier. So we can be able to visualize not only, of course, the notes that are taken internally, but also any type of communication that might be ongoing internally about the supplier or externally with the supplier. We could be able to quickly find different actions based upon their type, for example, or also based upon their status. We can be able to directly jump into an ongoing action here, or we could be able to add a brand new action by pressing Add New. If I want to be able to quickly jump into an ongoing action, such as this example for an improvement proposal, I can be able to see the different types of ways that we can build up this action space to manage communication and collaboration. There is an approval flow in the platform. The reason why is because you can involve multiple stakeholders in this particular action, pinging them at the correct time when they need to be able to come in and collaborate and communicate. It's a shared interface. So you and the supplier can be able to communicate back and forth. Maybe that's somewhere where you want to be able to share with them their previous results on a particular campaign, right? This is where you can also be able to request documentation from the supplier, but also share documentation directly in this interface with the supplier as well. It's where you can be able to give them a snapshot and overview of this action, and they can be able to access this in the same exact way which they can be able to access all of assessments via one-time encoded links in their password-protected emails. What that means is that they can be able to enter in with no login, no hassle. They're able to enter into this collaboration portal so that you guys can be able to share documentation and communication back and forth in a very streamlined manner, removing the threshold for that response as well. You can also be able to manage different types of sub-actions if you would like to, and you can be able to, of course, manage the status as we talked about, which then will, when it's done, reposit this particular action in the supplier scorecard as well. As we typically talk about, it's removing the Bob effect. Everybody has a Bob in their business who comes in and manages a lot of the relationship with the supplier, but doesn't log anything, doesn't upload any documentation or communication into the share drive, which of course requires or results in that when Bob leaves the business, everything goes with him, right? And this gives you guys the visibility and ability to be able to collaborate and communicate across your teams. And as a manager, of course, it gives you the capability to be able to quickly see different types of activities that are ongoing or things that you should be keeping an eye on, right, within your particular business based upon the different typifications or segmentations of these actions, but also related back to the suppliers or the people that are in fact managing those particular communication portals together with the supplier as well. And the applications of this are endless. We see a lot that processes are being managed in these. For example, the management of contracts. We see, for example, sourcing processes are sometimes being kicked off in the action space just from a communication perspective. We also see, for example, that onboarding or approval processes are taking place here. We see, for example, that corrective actions and improvement proposals are being managed here, as well as then different types of nonconformities where you can be able to issue to the supplier so that you can capture back data and documentation during the lifecycle management, and they can be able to share those things back with you. Again, keeping all the data, all the information, all the documentation in one single source of truth, which is the Kodiak platform. That, I think, wraps things up for where I want to take the demonstration today. As I mentioned, there's a lot more to be able to show within the process orchestration capabilities. You got to leave something for the imagination. We'd be happy to be able to demonstrate those items as well to different types of parties that are on the call today and interested in seeing so. You can be able to request a demonstration, as I mentioned before, on our website by pressing just simply on book a demo, or you could be able to utilize the link, I believe, that that our friend Richard has dropped in the chat line as well. James,
yeah, I've just flashed it up on the screen as well, actually, Sam. So if anyone does want to take advantage of that, and like you said, the idea of this is to give people a flavor and a snapshot, so as we're not boring anyone to death that's not interested and that's not and that it's not relevant for. But if it's tickled your fancy and you wanted to have a deeper dive and you've got some more detailed questions, then definitely do take advantage of that and book a more detailed demo from Sam and his team. So, Sam, that was awesome. Thank you so much. So I have a couple of quick fire questions before I go to a couple of questions that have come in the comments. So the first one is, you mentioned that you've got a link to EcoVadis and to was it Rapid Ratings and Integrity Next? Sorry. In those cases, does Kodiak Hub pull in that data, or would the customer need to have a subscription to either one?
So we're not a reseller
into your system.
Yeah, again, and I mean, this is a differentiation, right? Those businesses are great, right? They are telling the time. They have great and open databases. We're trying to build the clock, right? We're trying to help businesses to manage the relationship. Yeah. So when it comes to great data sources, whether that be third-party risk or ESG related data, if a client holds a existing agreement with them, we are an integration partner and happy to be able to link up and visualize that data in our platform as well. So this client requires, with those particular two vendors, to hold an existing license agreement simply.
Got it. Okay. And then the other one that I had was the examples that you walked through and some of the reports and everything that you showed. I was thinking that's kind of more geared up towards manufacturing companies or companies that are buying a lot of direct materials, raw materials, especially with supply chain transparency and risk and that type of thing. I was just thinking, could the system, and it looks like a very versatile product, if you were in a very highly regulated services industry, something like banking or insurance, for example, or even if you're a crypto platform, would you be able to leverage some of that functionality to do that as well?
So as I said to start the demonstration, we primarily work with businesses where quality and sustainability matters. What does that mean? Of course, then, areas where there's raw materials or particular risk components in a product or service is the industries that we do best in. 55% of our client base is in the manufacturing space. With that being said, we do have service use cases, and absolutely in more regulated service areas, there's absolutely a use case for our platform. With that being said, there's also additional use cases on top of just the capabilities related back to transparency, resilience, or risk management and compliance, right? Because we have to look at the other side of the business, driving performance, driving collaboration. In a service businesses, it's equally important to be able to understand, how are my marketing services providers, actually working? Are they in fact delivering on time and in full within the projects that we're working on with them? Just as I would, for example, in a manufacturing business, it's just the difference between the hard or the soft data aspects of that relationship typically.
Exactly. Yeah, it's more around it's more around more subjective feedback from stakeholders, isn't it? In that
Sure.
sense, which I guess functionality wise, you're able to do. So the first question that we had was from Tamo. Hi, Tamo. So Tamo's question is, how about multi-relations? Meaning, if I am a supplier, can I work with multiple customers within one login or environment within the platform?
Yeah. So thanks, Tom. And we've been following you guys for a long time. I love what you guys are doing in your business as well. We would love to have you on the podcast sometime. So give me a shout on the side of this. Regardless, no, we do not share data across suppliers. And again, that's a difference between us and a vendor, for example, like an Integrity Next or an EcoVadis or some other solution providers in the supplier management space. Why? Is because we're in the SRM space. We're not in the data space.
Okay, thank you, Sam. And then the next one was from Dchem. He's saying, could you please show us how the KPI export is visible? I'm not sure if you want me to switch back to your screen, Sam, just to show that, or whether it's best for Dchem just to book a more detailed demo.
Yeah, or I could be able to get in touch directly and show an export of that. So happy to be able to show that DChem on another session for sure.
Okay, and then finally, this one's from Patrick. How big should a company's turnover be for it to be profitable? I assume, Patrick, by that you mean, how big do you have to be to see an ROI typically on investing in Kodiak Hub? So I'm not going to ask you to share your pricing, Sam, because I know this is a public domain. But can you perhaps, without giving your competitors any red meat, can you perhaps answer that as best as you can?
No, I mean, hey, competitors are welcome to have some red meat. Like they say, what's the best thing about owning a bar is a bar next door, right? So we're happy to have competitors. When it comes to the size of the businesses that are using our platform, typically speaking, they're 100 million plus. We have plenty of clients though that are in that 50 million to 100 million. I think that there's plenty of ROI to be seen there. The real question is, what is the level of manual work associated with supplier relationship management? That's where you're going to see the initial operational FTE or FTE ROI. With that being said, there's also two additional layers that are typically a little bit harder to be able to calculate, related back to tactical and or strategic value levers, right? Tactical being that if you're working in a platform like ours, you're going to be able to have a strong negotiation power. You're going to be able to spot potential risks earlier, and you're going to be able to get in front of those, right? Which is, of course, going to change the way in which you manage your global spend. The strategic, of course, being brand visibility and safeguarding, stakeholder value. I mean, when it's all said and done, our supply chain is an extension of our business. And it's hard, of course, though, when it related back to ROI, to sell risk, right? So obviously, the volume of a business from that perspective typically has an impact on the ROI that the business is going to see. But it's not in any way, shape, or form like exclusive to businesses that are 100 million plus. So, if you're interested in learning more, Patrick, and you guys are in a segment below that, then please do feel free to reach out.
Awesome. And that was everything that has come in. So just before I wrap up, so anyone that has watched this and maybe was joined a bit late or perhaps didn't take any notes, we will send out the link to this demo. I will also publish it on our YouTube channel if the guys from Kodiak are happy for me to do that. So you can watch this after the fact as well. We'll send you the link. Also, if anyone clicked on attend and wasn't able to make the demo for any reason, maybe if you've got a colleague that was going to watch it with you, or if you want to show it to your boss or your decision maker or budget holder, then you will be able to watch this retroactively as well. So that will all be sent out via LinkedIn DM, either from myself or one of the Kodiak team once we've downloaded the attendees. So don't worry if you weren't able to catch any of it. Other than that, Sam, any closing remarks from you?
No, I think that anyone, if they're not already, knowing what procurementsoftware.site is as a great resource, and you're in the space shopping around for technology, whether that be for supplier relationship management technology or not. I'm just plugging you here, James, is that they need to go on your website and they need to go on your website and check out the competition that's out there. The space is booming. We're humbled to be a part of this space and be recognized as one of the pioneers in this space. And I hope everybody is looking to digitalize and transform within your ways of working in procurement in this coming year. And if that happens to be supplier relationship management you're looking at, we're always here to be able to take a chat.
Yeah, and like you said, thank you for the plug. I appreciate it. But I think you do raise a really good point that SRM has become a little bit of a catch-all term, hasn't it? And some people, when they refer to SRM, they essentially just mean like a vendor master data portal that houses all vendor data as a single source of truth. But as you can see from the demo of your platform, you do so much more than that in terms of pulling in third-party data and visualizing and displaying that all in one space. So yeah, echoing what you said, if you are interested in the SRM space, it is quite a broad church, and just understanding the differences between the different providers. And on procurementsoftware.site, we have that as well. We have different tags in terms of all of the different submodules that each SRM platform has. But seeing a demo is always the best way to be able to validate really what you're looking for. So Sam and Richard and the whole of the Kodiak team, appreciate your time and putting this together as well. Great to have you as always. And yeah, keep in touch, and we'll see you all again very soon. Whoever's joined us today, we'll be back again in May for another one. So thanks, Sam, and all the best.
Thank you as well, James. Appreciate it.
Yes.